Hello, this is Joe Trahan, welcoming you to the All Me podcast from the Taylor Hooton Foundation, whose mission is to enlighten the world to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances. As the national leader on this subject, they communicate their educational messages through various methods, including this podcast. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of our All Me podcast. I am Brian Parker. I'm back to be your host for another episode. Today is an exciting one because we get to spend some time talking with a Major League Baseball strength coach. Nate Shaw is the Major League Strength and Conditioning Coordinator for the Arizona Diamondbacks, a position that he has had since 2006. We will talk with Nate about all aspects of being a strength coach, including what his roles are in that position, the path that he took to get there, and the philosophy behind his program. Nate is also part of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society. This is an organization comprised of coaches from all across the minor and major leagues of baseball. This society, which you guys will hear me refer to as PBSCCS in this episode, empowers its coaches with the knowledge, the skills, and the ethics to increase the credibility and recognition of its coaches across baseball through a variety of different programs. The Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society has been a tremendous partner of the Taylor Hooton Foundation over the years, and we are truly grateful for their support. So let's get Nate into the show and talk about all things strength and conditioning. Nate, thanks so much for spending some time with us today, man. We truly appreciate it.
No, the pleasure's mine.
So before we start, you and I have to clear the air on something. So I learned some more about you getting ready to talk with you today. And we're going to talk about the path that you took to get to where you are now a little bit later in our chat. But one of the things I know about you is you went to the University of Florida, which makes you a Gator. One of the things that you need to know about me is I grew up in a small town called Athens, Georgia. So I think you have a good idea what that means. So first things first, me being a Bulldog, you a Gator, are we even allowed to have this conversation?
I mean, yeah, we owned that town for a really long time, so I feel real comfortable with it, you know?
Fair enough. That's about the kind of answer I was expecting, so that's good. I just had to know that was out there. So, all right, man, well, let's get to that path and kind of learn some more about you. Like with any guest that we have, we kind of want to start at the beginning, learn more about what made you the person that you are now. So I know this is kind of an all-encompassing question and can be as in-depth as we want to go. But let's start with your childhood a little bit, your early background. As I know, you have a story, made a big impact on you and who you are today in a few different ways. So, take it from there. Tell us as best you can about the early days of your life.
Well, I think I was great question right off the bat, by the way. Holy cow. No, I think I was probably just like any other American kid, man. Just living in a little small town. My parents along the way did the best they could, and I think that's one of the things that you probably get a little more of appreciation for as you get a little bit older and then you become a parent. But, they did the best they could at the time. And I think I grew up with, I grew up in a loving house, a loving family. My mom, her first husband was a guy that was just pretty intense, and he taught me a ton about work ethic and being mechanically inclined, and I learned a lot of stuff around discipline and kind of toughness. But when they would drink, and have a couple of pops or whatever, and things would get out of control, and there was a lot of physical violence when the drinking started. So for me, it was a unique opportunity, man, because you're little and you feel helpless, you feel like you can't do anything, and you're also learning the whole time. And a couple of things I learned is that I'm not ever gonna hit a woman, obviously. I also learned that some people lose control when they drink and some people don't, and I learned that I don't really like uncertainty, because when they would drink, and it wasn't all the time, it was probably 3 or 4 times a year it would happen, and they would get a little out of control, and the uncertainty of, oh boy, what's going to happen next kind of shaped my life moving forward, and like I said, man, they would have some knockdown drag-outs, and I was a little guy, so I was more of a witness and really couldn't do anything about it. And that was a challenge, and I think all of that has kind of helped shape me moving forward. I am not much of a drinker, if ever. I also like to work hard, and that fear of uncertainty, not knowing what was going to happen next when I was a kid, ultimately shaped my life in some really good ways, and then obviously some not so good ways. So one of the things that I got out of it was like, I don't like uncertainty, right? So I don't like not knowing what's going to happen. And so if you take a baseball player and you put them through a workout program, I want to know that what I'm doing is going to be something that's going to be helpful. I don't want to do something that I don't know what the outcome is. So that's why strength coaches are, I think that's why strength coaches are very good at regiments and things that they can make certain, right? Like if you lift this weight X amount of times, you'll get this response, and therefore you will be stronger. And so I think naturally I'm a fixer. So what my childhood learning strategy was observe, in a relative place of fear, and then evaluate, right? And then try to find a way to intervene. And if you think about it, it's the same thing as a intake. You observe the player, you evaluate the player, you look at what they're good at, what they're not good at, what movements they can do, what movements they can't do, and then intervene. So back then, I intervened with my personality when I was a kid. Mom would be, she would be a little more cantankerous and a little more sharp with her tongue when she was drinking, and my stepdad at the time, he was probably had a little less patience, so that was kind of a bad mix. And so I would see that coming, and I would have evaluated that, and I would be like, oh, all right, let's try to do something funny here, or let's separate these two, or let me ask a question about the truck or the backhoe or the chainsaw or building the house or the dog, or I would try to divert, I would try to intervene, and intervening at that age was different than what I do now for a profession. I have evaluations, and I look at, like I said, the movement patterns, and then recreate what I think they need. I intervene with what I think will get them on the path of certainty that I want to take them, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of rambling right there. I'm sorry about that.
No, that makes sense. I mean, look, here's, I asked about your background because I knew some of that with your parents and how that environment could be. What I really find, honestly, almost inspirational about what you're saying and your story is that you learn from that, right? So it's not just, hey, here was the negative, how did that weigh on me? It's like, how did you learn from that, and what qualities did you gain from that, and how has that driven you into not only what you do for a living, but just as you are as a person? So that's, to me, that's an inspirational way to look at it, and a really positive way to look at it, which is a really good thing to hear. Back in those days, like in the early days, like of your life, even let's say up into like high school, what if you needed an outlet, what was that? Was sports kind of something that drew you away, drew your interest? Was it really working out, like the strength aspect part? Like, were those outlets that were early in your life that then you decided, hey, I like these things, maybe I can look into working in one of these fields somehow?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think outlet, being driven, in America, I think the sports culture is pretty strong. And if you're a kid, I grew up in Florida, so for me, it was football for sure, and I loved baseball too, but it was sports for sure. I started playing sports at a young age. I liked the competitiveness of it. I liked, I had a coach, and his name was Coach Dennis, and we had this kind of rule where if you wanted to if you wanted to be the starting player, you could essentially pick a fight or challenge a guy for his spot, right? So you could pick a fight with the guy in front of you if you wanted to, and it's probably not the best way to say that, but you could challenge the guy in front of you for his job. And that was seventh grade, and for me, it was really cool. I wasn't a very good player back then, and obviously never was a great player anyway, but I challenged him and was fortunate enough to win the challenge, probably 51-49, and probably just because I challenged him. And that probably made one of the biggest impacts in my life. Like, if you want something, you got to go get it, man. There's no excuses. There's no, if you want to play, work harder and practice and get better, and you'll play. Put the coach or the person or the employer, put them in a situation where the decision is difficult, like, oh man, I can't not play this guy. You know, how can I not play this guy? And I took responsibility for that early on, and didn't realize it. I just thought I was just being competitive and, you know, working hard. And those things are certain. And if you look back at my uncertainty childhood, you're just like, oh man, what's going to happen next? They're drinking. Oh, I don't know what's going to go on. I'm just going to. So what does working hard do? That's something that's very certain. What does sports do? Like, if you play hard and you practice hard, if you do your job, you can be a part of a winning team. And it's like, man, all those things are certain. So I naturally gravitated towards sports and towards competition. And I really liked it. I wasn't great at anything I did. I played football. I think I led my football team in sacks. I went to Lake Ware High School, and I led my football team in sacks my senior year with 3. And I was I think third team honorable mention, all state or something like that. Like just you know what I mean? Like nothing to speak of compared to the guys that I work with now. And what I did learn though from one of my coaches, he said he took me aside. I said, man, I want to play varsity. And he was honest with me. He said, man, all you got to do is hustle. That's all you got to do. I was like, and in my mind, looking back, like why that made sense to me was because that's something I could do that was certain, right? So, man, I hustled my tail off, and I got to play varsity probably before I should have. I hustled my ass off and made the baseball team. You know, I hustled in all the drills. I hustled everywhere I could, and became the classic, you know, 6th man off the bench type guy that was okay, but was always in the right position at the right time, and always made all the routine plays. And every once in a while made a great play, but more so made all the fundamental plays, you know, and I think that has been played forward in my life. Like you learn competition, right? And that's also the flip side of being competitive is, you know, who has a bigger fear of losing, right? Like that's kind of the two sides of the coin of that one. But I've also been really convicted about the things that have made me successful, which is the flip side of conviction is stubbornness, right? So there's some things you believe in that you're committed to, but then you're also stubborn. So it's like being able to see both sides of the coin for me. And when working, all that led to me working hard and realizing at an early point in my life that, man, there's no shortcuts and nobody's going to give you any freebies. You got to go out there and get what you want. And I wouldn't trade any of those lessons in. I would take all the pain out of everybody's life because that part is difficult, you know, but I wouldn't change the lessons because they've gotten me where I'm at. And, you know, I love my career and I love my boy. I'm a great dad because of the things that I saw growing up. They're very easy. Like I had a polarizing childhood in some ways. It was awesome when nobody was drinking. You know, it was almost June and Ward Cleaver, like the Beaver. You know what I mean? It was great. And then when they would drink, it was quite easy for me to see that, no, I ain't doing that, man. I'm not the smartest guy, but that's not for me, you know? And so I'm thankful for those opportunities because some people don't have that. And, you know, some people don't have a reference point that's low enough to put things in perspective. You know, sometimes maybe just their dad yelled at them one time or paid more attention to the older brother or the sister, or, you know what I mean? And I had it way easier because it was easy for me to see what was good and what was bad. So,
yeah. And you learned that, you know, what sticks with me, I always say, like, you learn that you control what you control, right? And when you control those positive aspects that you said that got you where you are now, I mean, that's a powerful thing. Instead of trying to look big picture, hoping everything works out. No, here's what's right in front of you. I'm gonna do it to my best ability, and that's gonna get me to where I want to go. So, and that's what it has done for you. So, I guess that's where I'm curious is like, where did, you know, that interest in sports and those lessons you start to learn got you to today? So, kind of walk us through like, what was your path to get you into baseball? Starting at, let's say, like your educational path, what did you have to do there? And then how did that lead into the door opening for you to get into baseball?
Well, that's a great question. I wanted to, I was like we said, I was a mediocre football player, a hustle guy. And I think I was playing running back in practice. I I was normally a defensive end. So I was a starting offense, starting defense. And then I was playing against the backups on defense, and I was the running back. So it's just total fun, right? And, man, one of those guys just smashed his helmet right in the middle of my quad when I was running the ball. And I had the biggest quad contusion. I was like, oh, I couldn't even move. And so I had to go to physical therapy. And I went there, and I was like, well, oh, man, people do this for a living? Like, this is cool. And went and kind of checked it out and realized that, this whole sports medicine thing was probably something that I would excel at because I really liked. And, my quad eventually got better, and I went to a junior college and then tried to get into a physical therapy assistant program. And at the time, it was like, it was easier. It was actually easier to get into med school than it was to get into any type of PT or PTA program. And, I was underqualified. I didn't take organic chemistry was a defining factor in my life. Like, you either master that class and go on to med school for me, or you don't master that class and you don't go on to med school. So I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I chose just regular chemistry too. And so decided to go the physical therapy kind of route. I tried to apply for 3 years each year, bolstering my resume, and didn't get in. And sat down with a mentor of mine, and he was like, look, man, go to the University of Florida. They have an athletic training program there. So I went and met up with the program director, and, seemed like a pretty good fit. So I went to the University of Florida. My first semester was in 1998, and I was part of I got into the athletic training program after that. And, we had a really good program there at the time, and learned just a bunch of great stuff, and truly fell in love with injuries and injury care and progression and return to play criteria. And then all the while I was still an athlete. Well, I'm still an average athlete, and was still taking care of myself, running and playing basketball and playing flag football, and just really still weight training. And ultimately my path wound up converging as to graduate from the University of Florida. At that time, I had to do an internship. And one of the guys that I worked with at the physical therapy clinic that I ended up getting a job at, which is a whole nother story. It was another great story. But he was there, and he was working with the Blue Jays. And he was like, hey, man, you want to do an internship with us? And I was like, man, that'd be fantastic. So I was able to work my way into an internship as a strength coach and a kind of dual, an athletic trainer, certified ATC, CSCS kind of internship. So I would set up the fields and do all the water and help with the treatment as an athletic trainer, and then go out and watch practice. And then afterwards I'd help out with the lifts, and by help out with the lifts, I mean putting weights away and wiping down tables and doing stuff that interns do. And I was able to learn a lot, and kind of fell into the dual credential, the versatility role. And from there I ended up taking some time off from after I graduated. I worked in Gainesville, Florida as a personal trainer, helped build a sports specific training program there, and then decided I want to get into baseball. So got into baseball, and as an athletic trainer, and then in minor leagues that year with that organization in Tampa, we didn't have any minor league strength coaches. So I was the strength coach. I was the trainer. I was also, in the minor leagues back then, it was you're also the food guy, you're the washing machine guy, you're the dryer guy, you're the lineup food guy. And so, you just kind of, I got into baseball and just, man, really got challenged in a ton of different ways, and, got to wear a lot of hats. And by the time it was all said and done, man, I was tired, but man, I had accomplished a lot and learned a lot. And so the next year we opened up a position as the strength and conditioning coordinator. And so I went from being a trainer with some pretty elite soft tissue skills for injuries to being the minor league strength and conditioning coordinator. So we started building a program, and we had a couple guys that got injured, a couple of, the typical big round pick. And so I went out there to help support the trainer out there in the different affiliate cities, and kind of was bouncing around the country doing injury repair, I guess, if that injury influence, I guess, trying to do good soft tissue and get guys back faster, and then doing strength and conditioning with them also. And it kind of just morphed. And then met some great people along the way and had a great opportunity to meet Ken Crenshaw. And then in 2006, he actually took a job with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And, I was the minor league strength conditioning coordinator with Tampa Bay at the time, and was fortunate enough to get permission from Tampa to come out and work with Arizona. So I've been the major league strength and conditioning coordinator for the Diamondbacks since '06. And with that, my job has been kind of to bridge both rooms. One of the things that we always talk about with the Diamondbacks, and we try to preach to our trainers and strength coaches, is just the ability to be versatile and know both rooms and kind of understand, what's necessary for each guy at each place. So is he more rehab oriented? Yeah, he can get some of that in there. But if the trainer's jammed up, then I can do soft tissue work on them. I can do corrective exercise with them, and then vice versa. So the experience that I have of being an athletic trainer for a year in the trenches, in the minor leagues, riding around on the buses is fantastic. And it's helped really change the way that I look at strength and conditioning. And I think it's made me really successful. And of course, I'm in the right system, and I'm surrounded by great people. So it's really easy to be myself and use the skills that I have because I have great teammates around me. So
yeah, it's so cool to hear how all of that comes together, and just, things just happen in the right time, and who you've known and how that comes full circle. I also smile when you talk about the minor leagues, because before I worked for the Taylor Hooton Foundation, I worked in the minor leagues as well, in minor league baseball for a few years. I was doing stadium operational stuff. And so when you said you had about 5 different titles to your name, I totally know what that's like, right? It's
yeah,
it's
totally.
a completely different environment, but man, there's no better place to learn that kind of stuff. And it's so cool to see that stuff coming full circle and helping you out. And what you're doing now is just a really cool story. So, I mean, once you got the head job at Arizona, and I know you've been there for a while now, gives you a chance to kind of implement your program, so to speak, right? So, give us a brief outline. What's your philosophy of strength and conditioning in with your program? Because I assume every strength coach differs a little bit with their ideas and techniques. So if you kind of had to sum up, what you believe in, what your program's all about, what would that look like?
Well, that's another great question. You're a good interviewer. I think that anybody that's good, and this is just my opinion, anybody that's good has learned from people along the way. And, you learn, kind of like when I was a little kid, I learned what was good and what was bad, and the things that work and the things that don't work. So, I'm just a product of all of the experiences that I've been fortunate enough to have. And I think, if I was going to break it down real simple, I think the reason why I'm so successful is because I work my tail off, and I have a good attitude about things, and I think people respect that. So people were eager to help me along the way. So I got some really unbelievable soft tissue skills from a guy named Willem Kramer. I got my break into baseball with George Poulis. I got my crack at the big leagues with Ken Crenshaw. I've learned PRI from Ron Ruska. I've learned soft tissue stuff from the Stecco group, from the DNS group, from FRC. I mean, it just the amount of people and thought processes that have influenced me. I don't necessarily feel right saying it's my philosophy, but I think the Diamondbacks philosophy and the things that we've found to work really well could probably be encapsulated in functional exercise that makes sense, being able to do both things on both sides, being able to get into a hip and get out of a hip, being able to load and explode, or internally rotate and externally rotate, being able to flex and extend, being well balanced and strong, both at the end range and the mid range, and working on efficiency. So I think those are probably some terms that probably make some sense to people, but I think in general, man, it's probably functional rotation and rib cage mechanics and breathing and core strength, and probably single leg activity might begin to encapsulate some of the things that we do. And I would say this too: we only use a grenade when we need to use a grenade. We use a sniper rifle when we have to use a sniper rifle. So, the general umbrella of the program is, things that are functional: lunges, side lunges, RDLs, standing on your feet, And then within that, there are nuances that each player needs. If a player doesn't have good movement quality in the frontal plane, then we'll try to address that and give them that. If they don't know how to use their transverse plane as well, we'll try to help them understand how to do that. So we have I don't know, I guess it's vast and varied, and I don't think it could be summed up easily, but probably more functional than not.
Yeah, well, functional, I think, makes sense, and it's something. I know you pull from all over, and it's always changing, and there's so many people that go into it. It's not just your philosophy thing. I think, like you said, it's always about teamwork at every different level, and that includes your level as well. I want our listeners to know a little bit more about what your average day looks like. I mean, I have some idea just because we know you guys fairly well, partnered with you guys, but for everybody listening that may not know everything that you are responsible for, what you guys do on a daily basis, kind of explain what your roles and responsibilities look like. And then maybe the easiest way to do that is let's take an average day in the middle of the season. Walk us through what that would look like, including what your in-game responsibilities would be.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Every once in a while I get a call from a friend or a person that I haven't seen in a while, or someone that I keep in contact with, and they're like, "Hey man, can you come over for a barbecue?"
Right.
She's like, "Yeah, right on, man, for sure." Yeah. Hey, are you gonna have baseball on TV? And he's like, "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, that means I'm working." You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So, man, we have a really long season, and the days change. There's a couple different types of days, but we'll say typical night game at home will be one of the scenarios that's pretty common. So, you get up, whatever. In the summertime, I get to hang out with my kiddo. We'll do whatever. We'll eat some breakfast, and then if I got to get them ready to school, I'll get them ready to take them to school, or we'll go out. We'll play some basketball, some football, or I'll try to carve out some time to spend with him. And then after I drop him off, I got to spend some time on myself. So I use typically to work out, whether it's running, weightlifting, hoops, or jiu-jitsu. And then I'll go from there, probably by about 11:15, 11:30, I'm probably on my way to work. I'm on my way to the ballpark. So I usually get there, try to get to my office, get posted up. Depending on what kind of workout I did there in the morning, I might need to finish up a couple things for myself personally. Typically that's corrective exercises and soft tissue work. And then I kind of like to be there on the ship, if you will, but not necessarily driving it just yet. Let guys come in. A lot of the coaches come in early. I usually try to be in the room by 12 or by 11:45 or 12, and then coaches will start trickling in, and that's when the communication starts. We'll start talking about what's going on in their day. What are they looking to get? What do they need? What are we any specific hot topics? So usually get that done. I'll grab some food. Probably try to eat by about 1. And then the players will start trickling in. So the players that work out are either relievers that didn't work out last night, or starters that aren't pitching that night, or position players that want to get an early lift in and give themselves some time before the day really begins, so that they can rest a little bit and recover. Then those waves kind of crest, and they roll back out, and then it turns into the get ready for BP group is around 3. We'll come in, everybody will at least get a warm-up. I think that's probably the most important thing of the day is the warm-up. Check in with guys, see how they're doing, whether it's soft tissue, thoracic mobility, hamstrings, obliques. Those are some of the things that we try to hit on everybody. Groove some running mechanics, and then get those guys ready for BP. Then during BP or right around BP, the pitchers will either have conditioning as a group, or they'll have their private bullpen practice sessions. So we kind of get another wave of conditioning, and then we get another wave of the pitchers that have pitched and need to do their arm care and whatever else is associated with their needs that day. Then we sit down for a couple minutes at BP, probably take a breath of fresh air, watch these guys hit mammo bombs off of the scoreboard and out of the panels and into the seats, and enjoy, kind of catch up. That's usually the time I use to catch up with the training staff, just in case there's something that we haven't briefed about that we need to brief. And then after that, I usually grab a plate of food on the way back in from BP and head to the weight room. And then it's kind of sort of eases into pregame meetings and then prep work for the guys that are going to play. The guys that haven't warmed up by then will come in and warm up. The starting pitcher usually comes in. And so we have, because we're the home team, we have a little bit more time. We got about 2 hours after batting practice before the game. And it kind of goes from moving casually into the post-batting practice mode and then into pregame mode. Usually out by the line, stretching guys or, whatever, be there if they need a quick stretch or if they got a question to answer or watch some running mechanics or whatever. Usually on the line about a half hour before the game. So we play at 6:40. So that's about 6:10. And then we, get them ready, get them loose. And then hopefully, we get that first 3 batters out and then we start whacking the little white ball around.
Right.
And in the game, we try to, whatever the needs are. There's usually the pregame needs are more along the lines of hydration, player prep, routine type stuff like that. And then as the pitcher comes out, then when there'll be some position players that are going to pitch hit typically to warm up and get them ready if they need anything. And then I'll take the starting pitcher when he comes out of the game. I'll go work with him. And then we'll work with the relievers as they come out. And then after the game's over, when we win, we have a little song or whatever that we sing, something really fun, or we give a player of the game award or something cool, man. We all get together, slap high fives, laugh, whatever. And then we take care of the list after the game. So usually, it's 2.5, 3 hour game. Usually done with the lifts probably by about 10 or so, 10:30, probably about a half hour, 45 minutes after the game. Then wind down, brief the training staff on what we saw, what we needed to do, when anything came up, and then shower up and head south, man.
Yeah.
And do it all again the next day.
Get ready to do it all again. Yes. I had a good idea what your day looked like, but I don't know that everybody knows how much goes into it. People think, oh, game's at 6:40. I'll show up an hour early and stretch the guys out. It's so much more than that. I even tell people that think they want to work at sports. Like, look, it's not as glamorous as you always think it is, right? I mean, sure, you tell people, oh, I work for the Diamondbacks. You're like, oh, how cool is that? You get to watch baseball. I've always been, I learned pretty quick. If you want to watch sports, don't work in sports, right? Because you're not really watching it, right? You're in the middle of it, right? So it's a lot that goes into it. I know how much time it takes for you guys, and you guys do such an impressive job. It's cool for people to hear that. What about the off season? Do you keep in touch with the guys? Do you give them a plan for that time and something they're expected to do, or is it really up to them, whatever they want to do at that time to stay in shape?
Well, I think everything, when you get to the in high school, right, you have a little bit of I think when you're working with youth sports and high school sports, you kind of have a little carrot to dangle about getting better, and in the minor leagues, we start talking about player development. Everybody wants to get to the big leagues. So there's a little bit of a carrot to dangle. In the major leagues, it's a little bit more about the relationships you've created and the ability of the players to have trust in you and be able to ask you for your input. And I think, there's nothing mandatory in the big leagues. I mean, there's nothing I can tell somebody with $3 million in the bank that is mandatory. So for me, it boils down to relationships and giving the player what they need. So my off-season requirements are more as a guiding post, a shepherd. Hey, look, this worked for you. Try to avoid these icebergs. Try not to don't do this exercise because it sparks up your back a little bit, or just try to give them guidance from afar. Some people ask for programs, and I'll dial out a program, no problem. A lot of guys like to get away for a little bit and have their own guy, and as long as their own guy isn't doing something dangerous,
right,
then it's the whole thing it's just kind of on an as needed basis. And, we have a program that we put out, and it's kind of like we said, man, it's a combination of things that we know that we think work really well. And, that being said, it's like, you can choose or not choose to do it. Some people are in love with squats, despite a low back problem, or some people are in love with bench press. And despite it being, there's a fine line between being able to notice and respect somebody's weightlifting program. Like, in their minds, they think they got to the big leagues because of what they do. And, it could be that way, or it could be you got to the big leagues in spite of your exercise program. So there's I don't know, most guys have a pretty good routine by the time they get to me. And so I just try to help them adjust their routine. And baseball is a game of adjustments. And, if you keep your eyes open and your ears open and talk less than you observe, I think you'll pick some stuff up, and then you can actually add some good advice when they ask. And I think that's what we all hope for, to have a positive influence on them. And, there's one thing that we have to say. There's no shortcuts, man. You got to work hard. If you're talented, you got to put in the time. because every guy that I worked with was an All-American. Every guy that I worked with was the best player on the team that he played on. He was all conference. He was all area code games, was the superstar in Little League, hit 500 in high school, threw 99. You know what I mean? Like, everybody was really, really, really good. And we're dealing with the upper 600, the upper 1% of the population in baseball, you know, and it's important to understand that there are no shortcuts, and you have to work hard. And yes, you have to make the most out of your talent. And being honest with yourself, your talent may not be good enough to get you to the major leagues, but if you can get the most out of your talent, then that's all you can ask for. Yeah. And if you wind up being a big leaguer for a day or two, that's fantastic. But if you wind up being a big leaguer for 20 years, that meant you were talented and you worked your ass off. And why wouldn't you want to be that? You know, at the end of it all, don't you want to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, you know what, man, I did everything I could and have no doubts about it and just put it all on the line. And, you know, there aren't any shortcuts. There's steroids. They're bad for you. They help you in the short term. You know, I mean, that's why they're illegal, because they work, right? But it's not a good choice because it's false, and you can't keep that pace. You can't continue to recover at that pace, and you can't do it for long. And then there's a ton of side effects afterwards. So it's like, man, if you just do the best you can, that's all you can do. And if you counsel smart people and get the best programs and do the best you can and work hard, man, that you want to. This isn't what young people probably want to hear, but that's what you want to let your son do. Those are the things you want to pass along to your kid. That, hey, man, if you work hard and you bust your ass, you got a real good chance of being successful in anything that you do. You know what? And it might be professional baseball. It might be NFL football. It might be the CEO of a nonprofit that changes the world. Like, it might be any of those things. And none of them are more important than any of the other ones. You just have to understand that there are no shortcuts, man.
Yeah, shortcuts never pay off, and they never feel good in the long run. That's why I tell people, it's like, I mean, you could take something like anabolic steroids, and is that going to make you bigger, stronger? Probably. Are you going to pay for it down the road? Yes. And then even if it does help you get to a level you want to be at, how are you going to feel about it? You know, like, you're not going to feel like you really, really earned it. So I'm with you 100% on that. I mean, that's what we tell young people every single day. Every time I end my talk, I always tell people, look, you guys can do anything you want to do, and you can do it the right way. It's just not going to be easy. But once you do it and you put in that time and that effort, man, there's not a better feeling in the world. So I'm with you 100%. Let's continue talking about those young people, because you know, I talk with them on a daily basis. If we have some young people listening today, right, and let's say they wanted to get bigger, stronger, they want to make a team, they want to reach a level, what are some, I don't know, programs, exercises, like things you could recommend, even if it's somebody that doesn't have access to a huge facility or big weight room, whatever? There's still stuff at their house they could work on. Any advice you kind of give people when they ask you for stuff like that they can do at home?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I feel like with young people, I think the hard part about being a young person is everybody wants to succeed. And the things that I have learned through my professional career are things that, I mean, I'm way more confident than I used to be. I have a sense of self-worth that is through the roof, you know, and I absolutely believe in myself and absolutely know that and can say that, hey, man, I gave it my best, and it was either meant to be or wasn't meant to be. And I know that, and I know what I need to do. So to a young person, it's tough because some coaches don't know the things that I've been experienced to. Some coaches that are in charge of playing time won't see eye to eye with my training programs, right? Some dads will, well, they told my kid to get bigger. Okay, all right, there's a way to get bigger. There's a smart way to do it. Like, yeah, there's facts. If you're a little bit bigger and you can use on a force plate, if you can generate more force, odds are you're probably going to be better at sports, okay? Being an NFL player is not going to be for everybody. Being an MLB player is not going to be for everybody. So to me, it's about teaching things that are fundamental. So if you can move, if you have good running mechanics, and you can, like, things that are never bad to me are body weight lunges, RDLs, side lunges are super important. Sprinting up a hill, not doing too many push-ups, not doing too many pull-ups, and not getting too tight that you can't move, but being active and practicing movement, playing multiple sports, playing period, playing something other than Fortnite. Those things, getting out and being active are the things that will make you better at sport. So if you have monkey bars and you can do a pull-up, great. If you can do 15 pull-ups, that's fine. I don't know that you need to be able to do more than 15 pull-ups. I don't even know that you need to be able to do a pull-up to be a professional baseball player, So for me, I think just having good, solid grip strength from playing on the monkey bars is awesome. Being able to have the shoulder stability to swing around on the monkey bars is fantastic. Being able to do some push-ups, being able to get off the ground fast, being able to do a couple of pull-ups, none of that's bad. It's just when you get into the fact that you have to be bigger, you need to put more meat on. One of the things that happens when you put meat on in the wrong places is then you lose mobility. And I know for a fact, I've heard stories. I'm fortunate enough that I can learn from other people's mistakes. And I had Ken Crenshaw is probably my biggest mentor in baseball. And, he used to work with some really big names back in the day. And he got them, they wanted to go home and get big and strong. And, like you take somebody and you get them big and strong, their mechanics change. Their body moves differently. So for me, outside, running, playing sports, playing tag, multi-directional changing of direction, like all of those things are unbelievable. Like having a development, the Little League football team that I coach with, they're the Vikings. And they're out here in Chandler, Arizona. And, they got a great coach, great head coach, and he believes in development. So the practices, we don't get to practice as much football per se because we have a development station where we rotate the guys through. Everybody goes to each station. So there's agility ladders, there's movement drills, cone drills, change of direction, running forward, running sideways, transitioning from forward to backwards. All of those things. Those things make you athletic. Playing basketball makes you athletic. Playing football makes you athletic. Playing baseball makes you athletic, right? So you can't teach any of those skills easily in the weight room, but you don't need to. If you just use your legs and move well, you'll be a better baseball player. And I'd say this, if you can move sideways really well and you can take a first couple of quick steps sideways, you're going to be better at any sport. If you can transition from one direction to another quickly, you're going to be better in any sport. And you can't teach that in the weight room. So, and the other part, man, if you practice hitting enough in baseball, you'll get good at hitting. And if you practice enough, you'll get good at whatever it is. If you take enough free throws, you'll be good at free throws. However, I firmly believe that you have to play multiple sports. You can't do the same thing year round. My son, unfortunately for him, is born in my house. He plays basketball, he plays football, he plays baseball, he's a black belt. Like he does many things, and he, and I don't force anything on him. He has to choose what he's going to do after school, but it's not going to be sit on your butt and play video games. So for me, he's active all the time, and he plays video games, and he does good at school. He's a great student, but it's about balance, and it's about teaching him the fundamentals of movement mechanics. And that's why when he is a pitcher, he throws strikes, because I helped him understand mechanics and how to move well. And when he's a quarterback, he throws an accurate football because he moves well, not because he's super talented. He's unfortunately, he's got his dad's genes. He's never going to be Patrick Mahomes, but he's going to know what to do, and he's going to be in the right position to do it. And if you can learn the fundamental things early and then do bodyweight exercises early, and be athletic early, man, that's your best chance to get the jump on the competition.
Yeah. I think
my opinion,
stuff like that it sounds basic, but I also think our youth just need to hear it, because, I talk to, students all the time that, I'll be honest, are being told to get bigger and stronger. Even if they aren't being told that, they feel that pressure, like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. And I try to tell guys, like, look, a lot of what yours are genetically built up. There's so many things that you just mentioned that you can build on that just sound so simple, but get lost in the shuffle because of all this pressure and what we see. That I think just hearing that from someone like you will be helpful for any young people that are listening to this, and stuff that I know both you and I tell people all the time.
No, I totally agree with you. And I'm not saying that weightlifting is bad or that the strength is wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that to just go in the weight room and get jacked isn't going to help you be a better athlete. Now,
Right.
if you do some really nice dump, like instead of doing a 400-pound squat, right? Why don't we do a 80-pound dumbbell in each hand forward lunge, right? That's going to translate better to any sport than squatting, unless you're on the weightlifting team and squatting or deadlifting or bench press is what you're trying to get better at. Let's pick some other exercises that make more sense. How about a really nice, well executed side lunge? You know what I mean? Like, what about that? Like, if I could side lunge 250 pounds, I would take that over a back squat of 400 anytime.
Yeah.
If I could do an inverted pull-up, or I could do a dumbbell row with 100 pounds, I would take that over a regular pull-up any day. You know, if you can hang and be loose and you have good, strong hands and you got good grip strength from varying your grip selection, your grip width, right? Then that's great. You know, those are wonderful things, but that isn't the same as doing sets of bench press to get big, because getting big hypertrophy isn't the same as max strength.
Right.
And what we need is strength. So, you know, getting big because you think you're small or you're scared that you're not enough, like, I understand that. I get that. There's a component to that, but let's not try to put unnecessary expectations on kids. You know, why not a standing landmine press instead of a bench press? Why not a single arm dumbbell press on a stability ball? You know, because you're using your entire body, and that's what you do when you play sports. And once your core is nice and strong and you got shoulder stability and you got hip motion, you're going to be a better athlete than the dude that moves like the Terminator and can bench 400 pounds. You know, like that doesn't really matter. And they haven't shown any correlation to bench press and being a better football player, bench press and being a better baseball player. The thing you get better at when you bench press is bench pressing. And that's okay if you're on the weightlifting team.
Yeah.
But if you're not, the law of diminishing returns is there. You know, like, let's do smart things that make people better athletes, and let's load them. Walking lunges, reverse lunges, step ups, those kind of things, man. I'll take a 200-pound step up with, you know, carrying 100 pounds in each hand over a squat any day.
Well, you've actually, well, it's functional. You've brought this whole thing full circle, because, you know, we talked about kind of your team philosophy, what you guys work on. You're basically talking about exercises that are functional, that have a purpose, right? That mimic things that you do on and off the field, rather than just, you know, throwing weight around without a idea of why you're doing it, right? So, you know, I'm right. Basically what I'm saying is, my next workout routine, I'm going to need you to write it up for me, right? You've got some better idea that I need to use. I want to kind of start to wrap up my talk with you by transitioning into something that I know that's super important to you, but also super important to us, and that's the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Society. Coaches Society. I know that's incredibly important to you. It's incredibly important to us. It's something that you're active with. During the introduction of the episode, I gave our listeners some insight into what PBSCCS is, what the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coach Society is all about. But from your perspective, because you're in it, tell us more about that organization, like how you guys work together. What are some of the resources you guys have for people that are looking to better themselves? Like, tell us more about that.
Oh, that's a great question. I think, you know, there's all you need is a phone, and you can be a guru. You can literally make a video and say that you work with a bunch of kids, or you work with X, Y, and Z, and this is the way you should do an exercise because X, Y, and Z, and you can completely fabricate your own career, right? And the things that have worked for you. And everybody has an opinion about what strength and conditioning is. So if you're a front office guy, you've lifted weights, you know what works for you, right? Why doesn't everybody else do that? Or, you know, everybody has an opinion about what fitness is. And the thing that I love about the PBSCCS is that those guys have worked their way up. And to me, I don't know if street cred is the word, but they got street cred. You know, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I value their opinion because they also have been doing it. They understand how to periodize a season when you have to eat Taco Bell, Mountain Dew, and you have to ride the bus for 10 hours, then play. They understand that. You know, they understand the limitations of our game. And so it's really easy to have an opinion on the outside. If I got an Instagram handle. I do, it's covert. No one knows it. Like, I'm not trying to self promote. I'm not trying to do I don't run a business. So the people that have to run a business, like, I totally get it. And they kind of get grouped in this category of a guru, right? Well, the PBSCCS, by just Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, like, by its very definition, those guys are gurus about the thing that I love and the thing that we do, which is in-season baseball. There is nobody better suited to answer a question about baseball than our group, because we do it.
Right. And
understand the limitations of bandwidth, attention span, scheduling, travel, nutrition, the dollar. Like, we understand those things, and we also understand how professionals act and be, and what's expected of them, and the fact that they get hit in every direction all the time about, hey, I need some of your time. I need you to take more ground balls. I need you to take more fly balls. I need you to work on this in the bullpen. I need you to catch a couple of bullpens for me. I need to Oh, and then I'm just another one of those guys saying, hey, I need your time in the weight room. And it's like, man, you can design all this great program. Anybody can design a program, but does the program put you in a place that you can recover well from it? Do you have time to recover? And are you too tired from it? Or is it too much? Is it not enough? Like, those questions for me, and what areas need to be strengthened, that's where the PBSCCS is like nobody else on the planet. Like, there's still, we've got different variations. Me, I'll put me way out on the functional end of the continuum. There are strength coaches in the PBSCCS that are still love meat and potato strength, still love the squat, still love the bench, still love cleaning and jerking. But what they have is experience. And they've done it, and they can see what has worked and what hasn't worked, and they can tell you what the big boys do and what the big boys don't do. And by big boys, I mean the studs on your team. They can tell you that without it being their best guess. You know what I mean? Without it being someone who did it, a couple of years ago, or works with guys in the off season or whatever. And there's plenty of knowledge out there. You have to be on top of everything. I have to understand force plates. I have to understand off season training. But there's probably nobody more qualified to answer questions about in-season adjustments than those guys in the PBSCCS. We got a website, we got the tweets, we got, I think we're going to start up an Instagram page. I mean, we got book faces, we got it all. And, I don't know the addresses to all that because I'm old school, but the information there.
Go ahead. In fact, actually, you guys started the Instagram account today. We saw it and we were like, hey, there it is. Finally popped up for us.
Hey,
making waves,
man, we
right?
got it, dude. we got. Hey, we're cool too, man. And it's great, And I think the content is simple and helpful and commonsensical, And then within that, there's a ton of people that have differentiations on what they think is best. And, it's a great diverse group of people that understand, that have work ethic, that understand there are no shortcuts, that understand, man, you got to put in the work. And I think there's probably no better collection of people than that. And I'm obviously biased because I'm one of them, and I understand what it is to be one of them.
Yeah, no, look, you aren't biased. You're telling the truth. PBSCCS is one of our favorite groups of people out there. We love working with every single one of you guys. What's really cool about the group that you guys have is that, like you said, you help each other out, which is awesome. You also help other people out that may be in the field or looking for resources. I mean, you guys can go to their website. It's baseballstrength.org. You can see some of the stuff that Nate's talking about. You can see the video resources. They've got a podcast out there. I mean, you can read articles about flexibility and strength and speed. And that, it's not like you guys just have all this tremendous knowledge and you're keeping it to yourselves. You're out there sharing it with everybody that wants it and needs it and can use it and, be helpful with it. So one of our favorite organizations that are out there. And I'm not just saying that because we know you guys well. You guys do a lot of great work. And one of the other reasons that we love you so much is that you guys have been such a tremendous supporter of the Taylor Hooton Foundation and what our message is. To be honest, like, you guys help us out with all our spring training trips. We come down and visit you guys and visit our All-Me Advisory Board players and all that. You guys put some of our All-Me shirts together. At the end of the day, you guys almost make the whole All-Me movement happen. So none of that would be where it is without you guys. Why as an organization did did the group feel like it was important to support our foundation and what we do?
Man, I think it probably boils down to the people, like who we are and the things that we stand for. I think there's a ton of commonality. It's we see it from kind of both sides. Like we see the players, and then we see how they develop. And obviously the game's changed, and the steroid thing is not cool, and it never really was cool, but it's for sure not accepted now. It's against the rules, and you want to try and give people the best opportunity to capitalize on their best selves. And I think that's kind of what your group is doing, trying to educate people about, man, the do's and the don'ts. And, sometimes the do's or the don'ts are, hey, dummy, don't do that exercise, but there's no real consequence to that. But when somebody loses their life, it's a much bigger consequence. And, if we can help kids and dads and coaches make better choices around what is actually important, then maybe we save some lives. I don't want to extrapolate it that far, on the butterfly effect, where a butterfly flaps his wings and then there's a tsunami on the other side of the world. I think that's a bit of a reach, but for me, we're service oriented, man. And if we can help somebody, if you could say that what we do saves a life, then that's a no brainer, but if we could just say that education helps people make better choices, and then maybe those better choices lead to, for sure, they're going to lead to a healthier body, and if it saves a life too, it's kind of an easy commonality, it's almost a no-brainer, and having a kid now, my son, I love him to death. He's got my genes though. And, his mom's not a 7-foot volleyball player from Sweden. So he's probably not going to be 9 feet tall and look like Javon Curse. You know what I mean? So he's going to have to do things the right way. And he's going to have to be able to work hard and not be able to take any shortcuts. And, those are the things that I try to instill in people. And, one thing that really comes to my mind is there are no shortcuts. And, when we start talking about things like, what going back to my career, what has helped me, like my mindset, I'm not having any shortcuts and, not expecting any freebies and no special treatment, like for sure. But one of the things that has absolutely made me who I am is the willingness to admit that I'm wrong, take responsibility for the things that I do that aren't perfect, and learn. I try to steal information from anybody and everybody, and you do that, you put that as part of one of your systems in place, and then you look up 15 years later, and the Diamondbacks organization has allowed me to spend money on continuing education every year. So I've had the opportunity to learn and teach and learn and teach and learn. And man, you do that for 15 years and you look back and man, there's books that I haven't read, but if you look at the books that I have read and the courses that I have been to and the things that I've been able to experience, man, it starts to add up. So, I would challenge anybody in the trenches to try and get one more book in a month, or try and, reach out to one more blog, or try to have one more conversation that's going to be impactful, and try to educate and try to get just a little bit more information than you did before, and then be able to apply it. And I think that is super important. And I guess just coming back full circle, that's what you guys are trying to do as an organization. You guys are trying to educate and give people advantages that are safe, legal information. Like that's what you're trying to do. And I think our organizations align perfectly. And I think that's why there's such a harmony between ours and yours.
Yeah, they do. It's a great team. We love working with you guys. Here's what I know. We're making a difference. And a lot of the difference that's being made is thanks to you guys. You guys are all living proof that you can be anything you want to be if you do it the right way. So speaking for our entire team, we want to give you guys a special thank you for your support. At the end of the day, you guys make a lot of the education that we do happen, and we're really thankful to have you guys as partners. So again, for you listeners, I'll put their website, baseballstrength.org, in the show notes, but please go learn more about all the great work that the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society does. It's really tremendous what you guys do. All right, Nate, last part. We're done with all the serious talk. We always like to end our our podcast on a little bit lighter note, give the listeners a little bit of insight into the guests. I think we've gotten to know you pretty well, but just so we can switch the tables just a little bit, I like to ask some curveball questions at the end. So these are just a couple of questions about you as a person that really doesn't really have anything to do with strength and conditioning, to be honest. Just a couple of random questions that you're going to give me some fastball answers to, okay? So number one, I asked this because I'm just like in a mindset where I feel like a lot of people are watching a bit more TV these days, and I'm always curious about this. Favorite TV show of all time? Do you have one?
Favorite TV show of all time, and that is a tough one.
It's a heavy question.
It's a heavy question, man. You got me. I tell you what, the one I'm watching right now, though, without question, is The Last Dance. I've been watching that Jordan documentary, man. I loved watching that guy growing up. So
it's incredible, man.
Bet.
No, I'm with you, dude. The Jordan documentary is insane. I mean, for me, like, I vaguely remember, especially his early days, I don't really remember much. I remember the tail of his career, but gosh, the production, everything on that is just incredible. I almost is like killing me to wait a week between the episodes. It's super well done. All right, last one. So as a strength coach, I know that strength and conditioning and nutrition kind of go hand in hand, right? Nutrition plays a big role in people's success within that. Saying that, dude, everybody I know loves a good cheat meal from time to time. I feel like that's just a human thing. So what's your go-to cheat meal? If you and I are going out to dinner, you're going all out, what are you ordering?
That's easy, man. I don't even call it cheating. It's all judgment. I don't need any self-judgment. Meatballs. Meatballs, man. I love meatballs. Whether it's a meatball sandwich, spaghetti and meatballs. Sometimes I'll go through the food line and just take meatballs. You know what I mean?
I like it.
Sometimes you don't want to carb up. I love some meatballs. So, and, by cheating, that means 14 of them instead of 7. So,
yeah, cheat meal's probably not the best.
I like
cheat meal's maybe not the best term because, like, we always tell people, like, when we talk about nutrition, like, we shouldn't say that foods are good and bad. It puts a stigma on it, right? Like, let's just have a balance, right? And we got to eat more good than we do bad. But look, I'm with you. Why mess with the spaghetti when you can just get a bowl of meatballs? That works. So, all right. Well, Nate, look, it's been a privilege getting to talk with you and getting to know you a little bit. I know our listeners enjoyed it as well. Again, for anybody tuned into this, check out baseballstrength.org. You can learn all about the great work that PBSCCS does. If you want to learn more about our foundation and the education that we do on a daily basis, you can visit taylorhooton.org. You can learn both about both of our organizations and all the work that we do together. So thanks again for the time and the support, Nate. I hope our paths get to cross again soon. Until then, I hope I see you on the baseball field really soon, man. Thanks again for all the time.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks for listening to the All Me podcast from the Taylor Hooton Foundation, a nonprofit organization leading a national campaign to enlighten people to the truths about appearance and performance-enhancing substances and inspiring people to live and compete without the use of these substances. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast and tune in to our next episode.